All right. So you've heard rumors through the internet, you could say it's left-wing media, whatever, that they're attacking the man, they're trying to destroy the man, they're trying to turn men into women. Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, man, I don't know whether science came first and then the stories, or the stories came first and then science, and then they went back and forth interchangeable. I don't know. At this point, probably the stories came first because people had to record what was going on, and then science had to step in and figure out why things were going on the way they were going on, and then they figured out, oh, aha, that's how we got the man. That's how we got. Well, where the first woman came from, I couldn't tell you. Where the first human, I couldn't tell you. I seriously could not tell you where the first person came from. So, since we can't go back to the beginning, whatever that is, forget the Bible for a minute, then we had the stories that already was something that was already familiar in the public consciousness, right? Public consciousness. And so if you go as far as back as your grandparents and your great-great-great-grandparents, all the way back to history, back to antiquity. Yeah, there were men and there were women, but where did the woman come from? Where did the man come from? Well, you could say from the woman. But even then, what determines gender? Well, where does the word gender come from? Well, it comes from genes. And then they isolated the genes as far as gender, and they isolated the X, and you can see the chromosomes look like an X for a woman and a Y for the man. Okay, so you have that. But why is the Y look like it's a hacked X? Well, then I was studying antibodies. Now, this is when I was in the anti-vaccine world. And I remember watching some of the Hebrews and the right-wing people are posting stuff about, the mark of the beast and the devil. And we see all the different archetypes and the symbols of the devil. Well, it's always like the man, and devil could also be like Luciferian. So there's a light and the dark, and that's where you get the black and white checkerboard. And they're both construed as the devil, but one is light and one is dark. And so then I'm like, okay, so why is it always the men that are always construed as the devil? And then there's Jesus, who's a male. Well, why is Jesus a male? Well, of course, I'm sure he was some kind of prophet way back in antiquity. All right, so we have that. And then why are women looked at as like Eve or Mary or Lilith? Okay, and so you see the women archetypes. The all Gaia mother, but now we have through Catholicism, the real breakdown of women is the Madonna whore. First she's the Madonna, then she gets corrupted, she becomes the whore, and then she has a child, and then she becomes the Madonna again, until she then becomes the whore again. Then it's the MILFs, the MILFs. And it's like, oh my God. But, so we have that. So then what is the why? What is why? Why is an antibody? Then, and I remember posting that stuff on my other page that looked like the mark of the beast, and it was like the Y. Yeah, you had the stem, and then you had the two prongs that had the telomeres, whatever, and the DNA at each end, and antigen binding things, right? And I'm thinking like, well, I'm looking at like Charles Manson, and I look at, how men act towards women. Some are protectors, defenders, others are predatory. And you look at the police force, you look at FBI, CIA, all that, and there are men that are playing whatever roles they play. And I'm thinking like, and even women too, because they also play a protector, defender relative to how many antibodies. The antibodies could be a protector, defender, and they go and fight the good fight and protect people from whatever, and also be just as predatory as the men. And so, and that's where all the experiments come from. Because they're playing with genes. They're playing with genetics. And so And so then when you think about then with all the antibodies, now with cancer, with men are already the Y, which is the antibody, right? What do men do? They inseminate something. That's their role, whether they're gay or straight or whatever. And some women like to take on that role too. Okay, fine. But what do men do? They inseminate. So they become antibody. They're in relative destruct, and they're looking to destroy. See, now you get to see how gender and even the genes with that gender, what their roles are relative to what the distribution of antibodies and programming, and then what they deem is the enemy and all that. And that's why it's so dangerous for women who get with men that are crafty, and she can get destroyed in the process. That's why I wouldn't be, I don't know, man. That's the thing, is that the culture is so strong that it's hard for people to understand this. Then you sound like a man-hater. No, I'm not a man-hater. I love my husband. I have to tame him so he doesn't destroy me. And he gets it on some level, but he still has drive. But he learns how to control it. But that's the role of men when you think about it. They are the destroyers. They're protectors and the destroyers. And you can overprotect something. Okay? When you overprotect something, then it becomes destructive, because then whatever it's protecting doesn't have the conditioning to strengthen itself. And so then the protector becomes a destroyer. And so it doesn't surprise me that, yeah, a lot of my attackers were men, as well as women taking cues from men, or having boys as her sons or her offspring, teaching her boys to go and hunt women who don't follow the party line, teaching her boys to destroy women and beat up men who don't fulfill a specific role. And so that was the whole Charles Manson, was showing you that, yeah, a lot of these serial killers are men, because they were the protector of their mother, of their household, of their children, of society. They go off to war, but then when they don't have wars to fight, then they look for the wars within. And then they start destroying within. So that's what the antibodies, when people are so full of antibodies and are stocked up for both men and women, those antibodies, those Y antibodies, the main antibodies, they actually destroy from within. And then what's going to happen is the men will do themselves in, because they can't handle pain and suffering, because they are the pain and suffering. Because what will happen is, once they release that Y antibody, those chromosomes, and then the body finally comes together and becomes whole, will they turn into women? Like literally morph into women. Their whole identity is to be a protector, defender, or a predator. That's men's role. And it's just all relative to how the system has tempered their predatory instincts and their protective instincts. But that's the men's role. So could men actually release that protective and predatory instinct and release that, and then turn into, well, that's where people are like, I don't want to be gay. Oh my flipping God. So that's the question. If men's biological and cultural role is to be a predator or defender, defending or hunting what they deem is the target, could men release those Y antibodies and become whole X and turn into or morph into a female over time if they can handle the pain and suffering. That is the flippin' question. And that's some crazy shit, because we only know what we were told through the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, whatever. And so if men's biological and cultural role is to be predator or defender, defending or hunting what they deem as the target, could men release those Y antibodies and become whole X and turn into or morph into a female over time if they can handle the pain and suffering? If men are culturally having to be a certain way, you think they're going to want to turn into a woman and buy into that stigma of turning gay or whatever? No. I already know that. No. And so during this whole climate change, the lack of sugar, the high heat, and the intolerance for pain and suffering is going to destroy the Y. It's going to cause the antibodies to not only attack the person, but also attack others that are not strong enough. That's essentially what's going to happen. That's why men will be eventually extinct, because of climate change. See, before climate change, yeah, we could reproduce predators and defenders into our community and play that game of, who sunk my battleship. But the system is, I'm sure, is tired of all the wars. I mean, we're just repeating history. Every single time someone says something, does something, whatever, somebody has to go in genocide or go to war with somebody else. But that makes a lot of sense. So that's the thing. So if men want to prolong their lives, they're going to have to evolve into something that they have been stigmatized against, assuming they can handle the pain and suffering. And that's what's fucking crazy, is how many manly men out there could morph into a woman over time and accept it. But see, here's the thing. If men do that, which is fine, their friends and family who may not understand what's going on, they're going to die off at some point. So if men could actually withstand and not buy into their friends and family around them, stigmatizing them into a role, yeah, maybe over time they turn into a woman. But then you see all the people out there that are men, be like, oh, this woman used to be a man, and she's going through this and that. I'm saying, oh, you don't have to go through surgery. And there's a stigma to it. Fuck yeah. If you're born a man, okay, and then you morph into a woman, they're going to think you got surgery. They're going to think your gender identity issues. No. It's science biology. Because right now we have been bred to die and reproduce. When you're bred to die and reproduce, why did you reproduce? Because you're under stress, whether psychological stress or biological stress. And from that stress comes children. Sometimes these children are very predatory. They become the NKT cells. They become the things that hunt things that are not acceptable to them. They get triggered. So we develop, and that's also in girls too. Because then you have that one chick that was a prostitute that was killing men every single time that they did something to her, she would kill them. And that's, I forget her name, but Charlize Theron played her in a movie. But not many women are killers. I mean, there are some, yes. There are some older women that you've heard about them, maybe through stories, that maybe she was a landlord and she was killing older people and taking their Social Security checks and then, storing the bodies in the basement or something, or burying them in the backyard. And so, yeah, there are some women killers out there. But and so it's the antibodies that are doing it. It's the NK T cells, the natural killer T cells. When someone's so overabundant with them, even women, they can become very predatory and very violent, always on the defense. And then you see it play out all over Facebook. You see what women hunt other women take on the hatred roles of other countries, because other countries have to defend themselves, and they say, oh, I hate Israel, or I hate this, or I hate that. And they take on these roles of males as the defender and then also as the predator. And then you see these men out there who play the same game. But sometimes they play defense as an offense and offense as a defense, and you can't tell. And then we have women who are extremely manipulative because they have to survive their environment. They have to survive the men around them. They have to survive the women around them. And so then you have to learn how to play psychology games. And then there's the whole sex and love stuff. And then, oh my God. So it makes fucking sense now why they say at some point men are going to be obsolete. Because then they're showing you, even through mice, that they can make 2 viable offspring out of 2 males. Well, of course. Of course. That makes fucking sense. It makes sense. And I'll tell you, some men out there are scary, but some women out there are scary. So that's why I just stay away from everybody, because what I'm saying is like, it goes against what people's realities are. They're living in these paradigms. There's always going to be that plus and minus that represent genders. Always. Not necessarily, but that's the culture we've been brought up in. That's the culture from way back in antiquity. Why was that to begin with? And then what has contributed to all these wars? And girls and men, boys, getting brutalized. When you have Aleister Crowley as a pederast harming young boys. And you see that in the jail system where they use RAPE as a way to control other lesser males. Yeah, there's a reason. There's a reason why things have to stop. And women too, women as well, doing what they do. And so when you have sexually charged people who are predatory, they become destructive. They become destructive. So the system has to do something. But you can't tell girls not to, well, they've already sexualized them through everything. I mean, it's a mess out there. It's a mess. But that was the thing. So they did this stuff. Well, who's they? What? The abuse to boys and girls and men and women way back in antiquity. They've been using that, torturing girls and boys. I'm sure even back in the days of the giants. When I'm looking at Shaq O'Neal, and he's somewhere, I don't know where he is, but I saw a picture where he's with a girl that's so smaller than him, right? And Shaq's huge. Shaq is huge. So I can only imagine what appendage he holds and what that does to that girl. But she's okay with it. But you see, he's a giant fucking human. Can you imagine what kind of destruction he is doing to her with his huge appendage? Oh my God. And then you see what P. Diddy has done to the women in his world. And you see what Epstein has done to the young girls in his world. You see what Charles Manson has done to the women in his world. Then you're watching these patriarchal societies, whether it's the Hebrews, the right-wing Christians, the left-wing Christians, whatever, keeping girls in the dark and then forcing her to get married, and then saying, oh, it's the man's responsibility to break her into the sexual world. Can you imagine if that man has some really depraved needs, what he has done to that girl, or what he will do to that new girl that's in his world? And we have mothers forcing her daughters into those types of situations. And you don't know that person's background. You really don't know their sexual proclivities. You don't know, because you have the men there that say, oh, men or boys, go sow your wild oats, go abuse other girls. And then when you want to get married, go find a lamb who doesn't know any better and brutalize her and put her through fucking hell and saddle her with a bunch of children. So the system is seeing the misery. They're seeing the misery in both the girls and the boys. that are being harmed by antibodies. So many antibodies that turn into predatory under the guise of defense. Oh, it is brutal out there. And so, yeah, of course girls have to get manipulated because they have to fucking survive the men, survive the women under the control of the men. They have to play these games that I totally understand. That's why I'm just done with society, because I know now what the fuck I'm dealing with, and it is dangerous out there. And that's why I wouldn't be recommending your daughters and sons to go get with somebody, especially a little wide-eyed Disney fucking princess. See, I was told about this is how you have a baby, you know, this and this as a young person, and then I go to school, maybe I'm in fourth grade, fifth grade, something like that, and we're going into sex ed, and they were talking, and the guys were like, yeah, the men are supposed to teach the girls how to have sex. And I'm like, no, this is what you do. Penis, vagina, that's it. That's it. So the mystery's gone. I knew what to, that's why I stayed a virgin until I was like 18 or 19. Then I got married because that's what you're supposed to do. And I got divorced because, you know, that's not going to last. But that's what these girls who are little fucking Disney princesses, because their fathers and their mothers keep them so in the dark, and then she is thrust to a man who's already went through several women, probably brutalized them, left them either pregnant or not, or completely, you know, heartbroken because he led her on, and she gets brutalized. And that's what's in it for these young girls. And it is scary, scary, sad. And then she thinks it's normal to have some guy put on this big, huge contraption and brutalize the fuck out of her because that's what gets him off. Oh my God. When you realize what you went through as a mother before you became a mother, what you went through as a woman, and you didn't know any better. What do you think your young daughters and granddaughters are going to be going through? Oh, but it's a rite of passage for women to go through hell. Oh, is it really? It'll make her stronger. Yeah. There's ways to get stronger without being brutalized by a male or a female and then having to recover from that and then turn into a predator or a prey or just die. There's other ways to strengthen women without having to be sexually abused as a rite of passage. And that's what is so fucking sad right now, is that we have mothers that raise their boys to do that. So that's why the Y chromosome is going to go to the wayside, because they can reproduce humans without girls going through fucking hell and then having to lose her intelligence by having a bunch of babies, losing her body to these men and these mother-in-laws who are all about culture and tradition, who are fucking brutal themselves, to other women who don't fit in the party line, and to the world. And they're also traumatized. And then they go and play the game of everything's great, everything's wonderful. Oh, look at my family. Oh, I'm so beautiful. And so I can't handle the fakery. I can't handle any of that shit. So I just walk away and I just say what I say because I know exactly what goes on. I know everything. And when you finally are sober and clean and you see shit for what it is, you have to walk away. You can't play the game of holding any animal or child or older person hostage. Oh, but they need someone to take care. Do I want to be responsible for someone's life? Putting them through hell or putting them under because they can't handle, they can't release the demons on their own. They don't have the strength to fucking live. And so you have to be forced to torture them, even under anesthesia. No, I don't want to be, no, fuck that. And that's why I don't own an animal. That's why I don't have any children. And that's why I don't have any dependents. My husband is, and then if my husband has to have a deal, then he will deal with stuff. He knows now. Yeah, I mean, I'll call the 911 if I have to. I'll take care of him, but that's the only person I would take care of as far as that's what I sign on the dotted line for, is in sickness and in health. for richer or poor, till death do us part, whatever that means. But I will not voluntarily take on a dependent and just torture them throughout their whole fucking life and call it love and family. Fuck that. I did that for 8 years and I learned my very hard lessons around that with my dog. And so, yeah, so the Y chromosome is leaving because those are the antibodies. Those are the antibodies that when triggered, the protection turns into predatory behaviors. And then you see how men act to women. You see how men act towards other men. You see how men act towards themselves. And everything is a conquest. Everything becomes a conquest. Something to overtake, something to conquer. Whether it's their government, whether it's their friends and family, whether it's their exes. And it becomes rather scary. And I don't see any manly men want to soften up their approaches to anything because then they think it's gay. And when you have that stigma, you force men to destroy themselves. Because men already have an issue with anything soft except for their wives or their girlfriends. But they can't become soft. Softer. And so they're forced to play these roles until they destroy themselves. Just because they can't change. And they won't. Some maybe are able to if they get away from society and they do it on their own and they have enough resources to live on. But then when you're like, oh, I know this person used to be a man and now they're a woman, what do they do? Get a sex change? No, because over time, the men, if they are able to withstand pain and suffering, releasing demons and eating food, could that leg of that Y grow and become the X? So did somebody in the lab go and take those genes? No. See, that's the thing. So it had to have been immaculate conception for the male to grow. I don't know how it got into her uterus, so it had to have been a tumor then. Because I don't see how a human can all of a sudden get pregnant without something inseminating her and put it into her uterus. Okay, I don't see how that would happen. So it had to have been a tumor. An immortalized germline cell, right, like Henrietta Lacks. And that tumor, right, was then spliced and diced and found out there's a lot of Y's in it. They took those DNAs, put it in an egg, and gave it to the woman, and it became a man or something, or a boy, and then it turned into a man. And then I'm just trying to figure out from way in the beginning how the first man came to be. But it had to come from a woman, absolutely. So the whole thing with the Bible, was it Adam and Eve? No, it was Eve first. Remember, everything's inverted. Everything is inverted. And that was for a reason. Of course. And so Eve was the one that bore Adam. How do you take a fucking rib and turn it into... Come on. You have to know that story was allegory just to kind of give people a framework to work with. But when you think about it scientifically, can you take a rib and turn it into a woman? I mean, I guess you take the DNA and play with that. But to actually take a rib and like, okay, no, it was a woman first. And she was under so much duress, developed antibodies. And then already when she got pregnant, by what? I don't know. That's the thing. What is it? The sons of daughters and men and whatever. The sons of man went to the sons of God found the daughters of men, and where they came from, who knows? And then, so, you know, you have to question every single storyline out there, even whatever's in the Bible. You got to question it. I don't care how old those stories are. Everything does get modified. What if it was? What happens if someone wrote something and they switched it around and say, what if the daughters of God found the sons of men? The sons of men. Oh my God. I don't know. But scientifically I could see that the Bible may not be what you think it is. And that's going to really piss off a lot of people who believe in the Bible and believe it literally. And that's why I said those that believe in the Bible so literally, even through the 10 Commandments, there's so much room for interpretation. How could you possibly say that your way of what it means is the right way when it's so open for interpretation? Because there's degrees of killing, there's degrees of life, there's degrees of everything. Some things are black and white, like adultery. If you're married and you have an actual contract, you're not supposed to go outside your marriage. So that's pretty black and white. But thou shalt not kill, well, that's not as black and white as people think. So, oh my God. Yeah, this is a little crazy. I'm telling you, I want men and women to stay alive, but if they don't want to keep themselves alive and they resist evolution, well, you can't make them be like, okay, well, I'm just going to feel pain and suffering, pull crap out and blow my nose and cough and sneeze and change my ways and stay home and stay safe and not take part in all the activism and be out there. I mean, how many men are going to stay home? Like my husband. He is out right now fishing with his buddies. Good for him. I'm not stopping him. That's fine. But do you think he's going to want to stay home all the time and feel sick and then get on the truck and go do what he does? Or he's going to be like, I want to feel good when I'm driving the truck to make money. I mean, I told him, if you get rid of your truck and your boat, you could actually save money, not work as much. Those are the two main things, are the major expenses. But those are the two things that he could release and not work as much. But that's the thing. Men want what they fucking want. They have to keep up with other men. And men actually reinforce their own destruction with each other. And then their wives who don't really care, they're like, yeah, my man's man. I mean, my man's man, yeah, but I want to give him room to do whatever, but he's not going to do what I'm doing. And he's not going to want to turn into a woman over time. I can assure you that. So men are kind of fucked. Literally, men are kind of fucked. They're stuck in these roles. They don't have to be, but they choose to be because they've been radicalized. Then you have the whole Trump, right? Radicalizing men to be men. Yeah, the system pulled out all the stops. Was the system? No, they just reinforced what already was out there. Men radicalized to be men. Women radicalized their men to be men. Women radicalized to be themselves and whatever, and be, all about sex, pleasure, and paradise and having a billion kids. Well, if you're not going to change that mentality, well, then we'll just let you have what you want, and we'll change the climate, and you're going to treat yourself to death, and you have a billion kids or not. You have so many antibodies that could turn into cancer. Yeah, then you won't survive because climate change is what it is. And so I'm just going to read this stuff. So I said gene, gender, culture, cult, B, lie, F, belief, X, Y. Y is the predator or defender. And relative to how much stress her, which means the woman, the mother, and body undergoes, influences which gender she will reproduce. Men are and will eventually become extinct. So when you look at all the women back in the 1960s and 1960s, 70s, and they were under vast amounts of experimentation. You see how many children some of these women have? 4 boys, 3 boys, 2 boys, 1 boy, 2 girls. Yeah, during the time she had 2 girls, maybe she was psychologically stressed. When she had the boys, she was physically stressed. And sometimes pharmaceuticals put the body under physical stress. So then, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and then, now you have a boy who might have potentially even be predatory. And then you have the neurological issues with some of these boys. And then you have serial killers and SHOOTERSs in schools. And we have developed monsters in our society simply by what our cultures and traditions have told us to do through politics, religion, and science. And so, I truly think the first men came from the women because she was under so much duress that she developed so many antibodies that are in the shape of a Y. Y chromosome, also known as antibodies. The mark of the beast, right? And then you have the devil, which is the man. Lucifer is the man. And even Jesus, the protector, a man. And the women are like, the seductress or the Eve, so innocent until she gets corrupted. That's where the whole Disney princess, she's all innocent until something corrupts her. And then you saw that whole thing play out in the Mickey Mouse Club, right? You see Britney Spears and Miley Cyrus and what's the other chick? The one with the blonde hair. Justin Timberlake too, all of them, they're all innocent. And then they all get corrupted. But it was going to happen anyways. But the system wanted to show you that that's what happens is when you have a bunch of children, they're all innocent in the beginning and someone has to corrupt them and they go through fucking hell. They go through brutality. But you get like all this innovation at the expense of, but then we see what happens. We can still have innovation and we thank them for their service. They're the human sacrifice. People in Hollywood are the human sacrifices. Absolutely. Because look at poor Britney. She won't be able to redirect. Miley Cyrus, I doubt she'll redirect. I don't know. And Britney's on the other side of the whatever. And you see the girls like, Paris Hilton, Nikki Hilton, maybe they can redirect, but why would they? They're not allowed to redirect. And so, which is why women have boys, because she was under duress during conception and ovulation. A 2019 study found that women who are psychologically stressed during pregnancy are less likely to have boys. The study found that the women with psychological stress had a ratio of 2 boys and 3 girls, while women with physical stress had a ratio of 4 boys to 9 girls. Another study found that women with high levels of cortisol, a hormone linked to long-term stress, were 75% less likely to have sons. So, the boys, physical stress. And then that's why men are physically strong, right? Because of physical stress. And then also have their own issues sometimes. Eve always came before Adam. Adam was her predator and her protector. And just like vaccines, overprotection can also be deadly. Men can also be deadly to women. Men have also been a symbol of protection, which is basically immunizations and vaccines. Remember, they have the appendage that injects. They are uploading information into the woman or the man or whatever it is that he gets off on. But we are finding out those who have too many antibodies are attacked from the inside. And of course, some men are on the hunt and then destroy women when given the opportunity. Which makes a lot of sense why women have a lot of boys were attacking me and why a lot of men were attacking me. Because I was challenging their position at the gut level. And they knew. They know. And that's why it's dangerous to change the culture. But it's going to anyways. But you got to find a way to see if you can survive it. Because at this point, you have nothing to lose at this point. You already lost your friends and family to cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and lost to the culture of resistance. You're going to lose your kids if you don't find a way to redirect. You're going to lose yourself if you don't find a redirect. So the only way is to evolve to change. And I'm going to say that, I'm going to warn you that when you do change over time, especially in the J world, that you might turn that Y into an X. That might actually happen. And at this point, if that does happen, your friends and family that you're around won't even know because they'll be dead. So it won't even matter. The old world is falling away. So if there are men in the J world that finally do turn into women, maybe way down the road, the people around you are not going to be around. And then I'm not saying you're going to change your identity, but maybe you become something different. But to men, that's psychologically distressing. So I don't imagine they're going to even want to live through that. They're going to probably die as men versus morph into a woman 50 years from now. But that's why they're telling you that the men are going to be gone. Not because they're trying to kill them. It's because that's what's going to happen naturally through climate change. Or we're going to have a bunch of men. When you get a bunch of men together, they, like frat boys, that they go and brutalize women when given the opportunity. When you see men in a bunch of men in a car, women have to be afraid. A bunch of adolescent males in a car driving around, just like you saw in like The Outsiders, and even the Lost Boys, a bunch of men together. They play off each other, and they're in destruct mode, and they're looking for the innocent lamb. That's why these girls have to be careful going into bars, because they become a target. Because now it's a natural thing for men because of the Y antibody, the Y chromosome wants to go and search and destroy. Predator behavior. Pack behavior. And that's also with women too. But women splinter off and they go get, targeted because they're looking for whatever they're looking for. But women in packs are also then susceptible to the men in packs, and then it becomes a whole ORGY. So yeah, our girls don't even know what the fuck they're in for right now during this climate change, especially when you get a pack of males in a car driving around isolating a young little lamb by itself. Holy shit. Wow. But we are finding out those who have too many antibodies are attacked from the inside, and of course some men are on the hunt and they destroy women when given the opportunity. So that's why in college campuses, sending your girls off to college right now in this environment, when you have a bunch of men who've already been radicalized and the climate change has caused them to be so predatory and they hunt in packs, your girls are like, fuck. That's why you cultivate a Disney princess, you're making her a target. You put your girls on the internet right now, selling them to all your friends and family. Oh, look how hot my young daughter is. Oh, great. Okay. Wow. Which is why they're asking, what will happen when the Y chromosome finally disappears because we don't need as much protection like we used to? Will men turn into women if they are allowed to evolve and change and they're not stuck in their manly paradigms? And I don't imagine many men will understand this or even allow themselves to go through that process, which is why the men will have a hard time surviving climate change once they go through that process of immune system activation and they can't handle it. So yeah, when you get cancer, that's the beginning of the end. When you get cancer, disease, chronic illness, yeah. Some men will grow old and then they'll die. Okay, that's one side of it. Other men will get cancer and they'll treat it to death, and then there goes that. So why are men symbolized as Satan or the devil? Because the Y chromosome is the antibody, Antichrist, the body of Christ, right? Covered in the blood of Jesus. So that's the Antichrist antibody. So that's the negative. All right. Then you have the body of Christ, which is then the whole religious stuff, covering the blood of Jesus, your protection, covering the blood of what? Of white blood cells, of protection, antibodies, right? According to the Daily and the Word, being covered in the blood of Jesus means that it allows people to enter into the presence of holy God. It also grants people membership into divine family and access to God's presence. Okay, so there's this whole religious side of it. That's why, WHY/Y. Remember Charles Manson? So women have to be manipulative to survive the men, and sometimes she turns against her own gender because she's afraid of the men in her world. So then you look at people who have patriarchal societies, and the man is dictating what his wife should do, what his daughter should do, what his son should do, what everyone around him should do. And so if a woman wants to survive her man and that whole situation, she has to be cunning. She has to learn how to speak to his psychology. She has to learn how to speak to his whatever so she can survive that. And if a woman can't do that, then she either has to leave or she has to be destroyed. So you can imagine what these young 20-something-year-olds who are forced into marriage because their parents don't want to take care of them or set them up correctly, or say, hey, yeah, here's sex, here's this, here's that, go do this. And she does it, and then she has kids too on top of that. So maybe these parents have sexualized their kids and told them about stuff, but say, fine, if you want to have a child, have a child. But that girl, when she has a child, and even though she understands, what sex is and whatever, and maybe she does things for her husband, maybe she doesn't, and then she gets caught up in the tradition of having kids, and she's already breaking down. Can you imagine having a child is going to cause depletion of her even faster in this environment, assuming that kid survives? And so women have to be manipulative to survive the men, and sometimes she turns against her own gender because she's afraid of the men. And then women can also become as deadly as men if provoked. So then you have the girls at the bars who are under the influence that when provoked, they'll go to fucking blows with other women. They'll use their weight. They'll use their queen bee mentality. They'll use whatever to keep the other women in line. And then the women have to go and kiss the ring if they want to be part of that situation or go off somewhere else. That's the whole queen bee group mentality, is kissing the ring, bowing down to the queen bee, who will kick your ass if you don't do what she says in some way. And so, but all religions who are patriarchal practices some form of this, and women are nothing more than something to be traded between families and companies. So women carrying female fetuses have higher levels of human chorionic gonadotropin. Gonads, it's in the testes, right? HCG. Than women carrying male fetuses. Okay, so women who have higher levels of human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, than women carrying male fetuses, and this remains the case throughout the pregnancy. All right? This hormonal difference may appear as early as 3 weeks after conception. So she's psychologically higher stressed, but not as physically stressed. Human chorionic gonadotropin is a hormone produced by the placenta during pregnancy. It helps thicken a person's uterine lining to support a growing embryo and tells the body to stop menstruating. HCG levels rise after conception and continue to rise until about 10 weeks into pregnancy. And so if she has less of that, then maybe the antibodies are getting in and causing then that stress, the fight, and then it turns into a man who's fighting inside the womb to protect the woman and turns into then her son, who then protects his mother. Mommy dearest, or what is it, that hotel, I forget. I'm thinking of all these movies where boys become deadly protectors of their mother. Well, I use a Hitler. Because he was all protective of his mother. And so, yes, the placenta protects the fetus from invading pathogens by acting as an immune barrier. Maternal immunizations during pregnancy can also increase anti-spike Ig antibodies. Oh, this is probably where the boys come from, okay? Which can also protect newborns and infants from viruses. So then you think about it, if a woman already has a high-risk pregnancy, okay, and she doesn't have as much protection, like that HCG, and then she's getting immunizations to cause more antibodies, right? And then women who have boys are physically stressed out and not as psychologically stressed out, but which is why her placenta is not as strong, causing her to get immunizations, increasing the propensity of a boy baby. So I now can see why then some people back in the 1960s had like 3 boys, 4 boys, a slew of boys. Why we have Gen X boomers having a bunch of boys, because I'm sure all the different immunizations has increased the level of antibodies because of high-risk pregnancies. And then you're developing boys out of that. And it's interesting. I'm thinking of 2 people in my mind. I'm not going to say their names. It's all about privacy. But they both have very similar physiques. They both have kind of like a pointy face, skinny body, and slight women. Very slight women. And if you were to, one has blonde hair and one has brown hair. And if you put them together, and they both have boys, and they're both about the same age, which is really, really interesting. And they live on different coasts. And they both have boys, but they have a specific look to them. Almost like a mousy rat look. And they both are kind of even though they're one's in California, the other one's here in Ohio, and I'll put that out there, and you'll never know who I'm talking about. But they have that traditional way of doing things, and so their boys have gone into academia. One family has their boys go into academia, and the other one goes into the military and academia, but mostly the military. Well, academia, military. And they all have kids. But these boys are strong, strapping boys. Like, really strong. And you wonder, how do these boys, these big boys, and even from the fathers, you're like, where the hell did that come from? Okay, because the fathers are not that huge themselves. And you're like, because she 4 fucking boys or 3 boys. It's insane. It's literally insane to see how that, so yeah, experimentation of mass immunizations has, yes, caused then the gender the genders, the distribution of genders that are out there, and also predators, okay? And so women with lower levels of HCG are probably under high-risk pregnancy and are getting vaccinations causing increased predictability of male fetus, but could also turn that fetus into a male versus a female. And so IgY, all right, IgY is equivalent to IgG. So when you're increasing the IgG, you're also increasing the IgY. Including, so IgY is equivalent to IgG in most experimental applications, including Western blot, ELISA, immunohistochemistry, immunocystochemistry, and function blocking experiments. If men could tap into evolution to live, not die, would men essentially turn into female? Was the X the original and the Y or antibodies a modification? Was the Bible inverted to make you think Eve came from Adam when it was the other way around? And so the devil takes away the suffering. All right. So that's when I posted that picture of Charles. And he's not the devil, but people represent him as one. They already think of him as a reptilian. You see all those in the conspiracy world. Like, oh gosh, the Queen Mother is a reptile. The Queen whatever is, and the husband is a reptile. They're the reptilians. They're this, they're that. I mean, you see those stories circulate all over the internet. It's pretty crazy. And so the devil takes away the suffering. If you fancy yourself a person who takes away people's suffering, then you've already worshipped something like the devil. If you inflict pain on people with the knowledge, you could be called Luciferian. So then you think of Jimmy Savile. So to watch that on Netflix. Jimmy Savile was an entertainer and was very closely socially related to the royal family. And he was also victimizing people in orphanages, the kids he brought on stage with him. Jimmy'll fix it. Jimmy'll fix it. That was the mantra back then. Jimmy will fix it. And he was doing some brutal stuff to girls and even people who didn't have the capacity to fight for themselves. He had all access to the orphanages and played the insane asylums. And so if you inflict pain on people with your knowledge, all right, so he inflicted pain on kids. And you can be called Luciferian, especially if you force it on them and the people don't get the choice to walk away. Well, that's called RAPE. All right, so when you go on someone's page and you go and play the games of, I'm going to dispute you, that's called spiritual RAPE. Trolling is spiritual RAPE. When you're nicely disputing someone and defending your position like someone did yesterday, that's psychological RAPE. That's like dancing your way into someone's bed by charming them to fucking death. I don't play that game either. You're not charming me to death to defend your position. I'm not attacking you. But that's how girls have figured out how to get by, is to charm their conquest to death. Whatever it's a customer or it's a boyfriend or whoever, or someone who is challenging her position. But you're still forcing someone unless they block you. I wasn't blocking her yesterday, but I let her know she's not playing this fucking game of charming me to death. I'm not one of your boyfriends or conquests or even your sons or daughters. I know what the fuck's up. And I don't cross boundaries, so I can play this game. That's why you be defensive. You don't be offensive. Once you're in offense, you've lost all credibility. But when you're in defense, you have every credibility. And so activism is like a spiritual rape, when you are trolling people. When you employ yourself to take away someone's pain and suffering and not supporting that Luciferian practices to survive the painful knowledge and realizations, then you are practicing both Luciferian and Satanism. Then both can be deadly. That's why having dependents forces you to be a Luciferian and Satanic at the same time, because your dependents have zero choice in the matter. That's why they're your dependents. You rule over their body, their mind, and their spirit. And if not, then the government comes and steps in and takes over if you can't do it. Which is why I could speak the what I speak, because there is nobody that I wield my power over I don't have a group. I defend myself, but I don't have a group where I have a bunch of followers that I have to go and monitor and control and use fear of excommunication, which, yeah, I did. Oh, I played that game. Whether it was a website or having a private group, yeah, or a public group, yeah, that's like having a bunch of dependents. That you are playing the psychological game of, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to go and excommunicate you. That's a cult leader. So then on my Facebook, if I say what I say and you're attacking me, I deem it as an attack, I'm allowed to defend myself. But I don't go into any group and commandeer and tell people what to say, do, or think. And I don't go on people's pages and play the whole, I'm going to dispute you even nicely. And if I have, I'm sorry and I won't do it again. And I'll watch myself. Okay? So I'm sure I have, and I won't ever do that again. So which is why I could speak what I speak, because there is nobody that I wield my power over, and my husband is my equal. But if I had an animal or a child or even an elderly person under my care, well, I would be forced to be satanic or Luciferian relative to the situation. Dependents don't ever get a choice. They are in forced slavery. That's the slavery system. It's also human and animal and child trafficking and selling flesh and flesh manipulation using the medical holistic energy healing massage therapy world. Yeah, that's what probably prompted her to talk to me yesterday. And hey, when you have animals and you have children, hey, that's your lifestyle, fine. I am allowed to have a perspective around that, given what I've experienced the last 3 years around my own animal. And when you live that suffering, I'm telling you, it was a suffering for all of us. When you live that suffering, you're not going to ever relive that suffering. Because everything's great in the beginning until it's not. And when it's not, it is so bad. Why would you put yourself in that situation? Because you can't save animals, really. You can only watch them deteriorate and be a party to their deterioration and the torture of them throughout their whole life. And the animal has no choice but to deal with it. And they don't have any voice. They can't speak. You don't know what the fuck they're thinking. Just because, yeah, they're wagging their tail and they're looking at you like this and that doesn't mean that they're so happy all the time. They could be suffering inside and you would never know it. Well, you're like, well, the behavior says it's not all the time. And are you really aware? Really? Can you imagine what these poor animals go through when they're forced to go through these situations? That's right there, torture. And so, yeah, children going through that. And so that's what I'm saying. When you're already in it, you'll deal with it and do what you got to do and play that game. But when you realize that you can't save your kids and all this, then you, mom, and have to save yourself. And if your kid is that impotent and that predatory and dangerous, you got to do what you got to do. You got to protect yourself and protect those that could be a victim of one or more of your children. And if you have a lot of children, you know which ones are harder to deal with. And once you have kids and you have to go through that process, I've seen movies where it's like, oh, this parent had to go and commit her kid, and the kid is just, well, that was watching 6 Feet Under. That's right. You have two psychiatrists with two messed up kids, one sexually crazy, the other one is crazy, and she had to commit him and go through that whole process of being on your meds and off your meds and on your meds and off your meds, and that right there is a hell. So yeah, I would be strong, but some things are out of your hands. If your kid is that out of control, you can't save them, and you can't be in denial, because what are you releasing onto the community when you know your kid's a little fucked up? I just hope that there are parents out there that realize this and they protect themselves from certain kids out there who are a little fucked up, and you'd never know it unless you're aware. And that's how shit works. Oh, wow. So let me say this. So the left is Luciferian and the right is a type of satanic. The left enlighten people at whatever age is appropriate, and that's the whole, what is it? Sex ed in school. And so they can make a choice, and the right keep you in the dark until you're traumatized and don't know how to protect yourself. So we have people who are upset at the school system teaching tolerance and pronouns. I see people say, oh my God, they're teaching he, she, it, they, or whatever, right? And I have no problem. If somebody says they are a she and then maybe through the genders they are a he, if they want to be called a she, why would I give a shit? Why would I care what they call themselves? If they want to be called a he or she or it, whatever, I'll call them whatever they want. But they have to let me know. Sometimes it's obvious. Maybe it's a man dressed up or a boy dressed up as a girl. And you can kind of see that maybe it's probably a boy, but they're dressed up as a girl and they want to be called, Claudia. Okay, Claudia. Nice to meet you, Claudia. Oh my God, but that's teaching that's all inverted and there's and that, satanic. And before you go there, let's look at your background. What kind of Satanism you're practicing on yourself and your animals and everyone around you before you start making those kind of claims. And so the left enlighten people at whatever is age appropriate so they can make a choice, and the right keep you in the dark. Oh, the men will teach you how to have sex. So the man, again, will brutalize a little lamb that doesn't know any better and then saddle her with a bunch of kids, and she doesn't know any better because her own parents didn't fucking help her out and teach her. And so the right keep you into the dark until you are traumatized and don't know how to protect yourself. We truly do live in a Luciferian satanic society, and they both end up dead if you don't redirect and understand how to balance both, but not end up going to extremes. It's like walking away. You got to walk away. When you see that you live in a Luciferian satanic society, and you realize that's the society you live in, so much enlightenment people get crazy and they get all activisty and resist, and then so much darkness that when they find out what happens, or find out what actually is so, they may not survive it. See, the fact that I knew a lot of stuff, even though I walked in situations that probably were not healthy for me, I survived it. I either manipulated my way out of it, or I talked my way out of it, or I just walked away and cut my losses and was traumatized, yes, but what are you going to fucking do? It was a lesson never to go there again. I walked towards something that wasn't good for me, and then I have to walk away and lick my wounds and vow never to go down that road again. There's no justice to be had there. It was a lesson that I survived. You go down that road of justice, you'll just keep reliving that and never learn from it and think that the world owes you something because you walked towards something. And now you want money compensation and justice and this and that. No. Because no matter what justice you get, is it going to help you in the long run? People throw money at shit all the time. It doesn't fucking help them. So the left wing actually respects the women more than the right wing actually do. However, I see a lot of left wing who groom their children for marriage and family, and so I think they're actually right wing but left wing in disguise. Now, you can't control your kids anyway, so it doesn't even matter at this point. When you have a kid, it's done. They're gonna have to figure it out. And so no matter what, when women are going to have to learn, no matter what, women are going to have to learn very, very, very hard lessons, and many are brutalized and they don't survive, and it makes me sad for women. But it starts off in the family. And I wish I knew if mother or the child would be the one to survive what's going on, but there's no way to know this. I want to think the mother will be the one to protect her, redirect herself. It may not even be strong, but she may not even be strong enough. And I can't assume her children are strong enough if she's not. That's why it's up to the mothers to take care of themselves. You've been through the hell. You've been through it. This is when you realize the mistakes you've made, the things that you put yourself through, the things that your parents put you through because you didn't know any better, they didn't know any better. And will you have your children go through the same hell? And then will you find a way to redirect and fill in the holes that the society and your children left without taking yourself down? And so King Charles II represents the devil within you, contributing the suffering of animals and humans by trafficking them and selling them into slavery. He is saying the devil is here. The suffering of animals and humans are over. Died suddenly will alleviate all suffering. And the treatments will accelerate the ending of your suffering, called rest and peace. The devil is here, and he will save humans from those who drag out their suffering by hurting others, essentially after they've hurt themselves. Okay? And so that's what so I wouldn't say that he's bad. He's not. He's just a symbol that people have adopted as to be the evil doer, but people are doing it to themselves. They do it to their children. They do it to the world. King Charles is nowhere near you, but he's a symbol of what's going on. And so when you're raising your girls to be Disney princesses only to get brutalized by some opportunistic, hormonally driven male, can make or break the women to be extremely strong and courageous, or mean and loving using psychological warfare. Okay? So there's two sides of it all. Men are trained to be protectors and predators. Women have to figure out how to fucking survive them. And they both annihilate each other if they don't figure out how to work together and also be apart. So now look at the women in our society and what perspectives they come from. And I will tell you, female psychological warfare is brutal because you don't realize you're being attacked. Now, remember, they have to learn this because they have to survive their fathers, their mothers, their brothers, and the men around them. Okay? They numb you in the front while sucking the life out of you in the back. And you're not even aware because they're flipping through the photos showing you pictures of them in bikinis and other babies along with puppies and kittens. The strategic use of the oxytocin and bonding is what gives females the upper hand, and that's how they destroy you from within. That's why women are called black widows, because they hypnotize the targets and then suck the life out of them. Now, I'm not saying go and be mean to women. No, that's how they have to fucking survive. But see, here's the thing. Some people think I'm the enemy and I'm calling into question their lifestyle and belief system, and they'll play their games of deadly charm and knife me in the back while smiling in the front. I know I got your number. You are in survival mode, but I'm not the enemy here. So please don't use your charms on me, because it's not going to fucking work. All right? And when you are hip to this, then you start staying away from females because you know exactly the arsenal they use, and they won't like you for knowing it. Yeah, you're exposed psychological females who use love and bonding to destroy your friends and family, even yourself. Maybe you didn't know this before, but now you know. But that awareness potentially won't make a difference because what you're doing is working. And I get it. If you're making money from all that, fine. If you like your family and the situation you're in, fine. Don't follow me, because I'm going to call into question everything. And you don't need to defend me because we're in transition. Who cares? And so I have to be very careful how I use my powers around my husband and him too, because hormones are intoxicating and people leverage their hormones over some unsuspecting target. I am very aware, and that's why I control the amount of hormonal release and retention in my world, so I'm not destroying anyone, and I don't want anyone destroying me. And there's a reason why people bond with each other. It's because they're sucking the life out of you, and you're sucking the life out of them. Just make sure you can afford having someone suck the life out of you. Make sure you can replenish the resources used from that bonding. Okay? So that's why you have to be very aware. If you want to survive this, figure out what kind of bonding relationships you have and who you're surrounding yourself with. And we're in particle acceleration, so whatever energy conversion that you have to deal with in your family and friends and lifestyle, it's double. You have to eat double, triple with the lifestyle that you are in right now. How many conservatives people still traffic their daughters into marriage and having children and forcing their daughters to have children? Okay? So I've seen pictures of that picture of Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse, and her dress looks like an appendage, a male appendage. Okay, but so I see this from the right wing women. Like, oh, I'm anti-Disney, and I see that well, right wing women could also be like the Hebrews. It doesn't have to be Christian. It could be Hebrews, Christian, patriarchal societies with women as the the predators taking cues from the devil, right? The patriarchs. So how many conservative people still traffic their daughters into marriage and having children and forcing their daughters to have children? I see very conservative religious people who have big families preach the anti-Disney rhetoric, and they have forced their daughters into marriage and being that Disney princess uncorrupted until they allow someone to corrupt their own daughters through marriage. Selling their daughters and sons' image on the internet to gain social market share through pleasure and paradise. Of course, I know liberals are okay with this because that's the liberal programming, but whatever, that's setting the girls up to expect and understand, and she has to make the choice and survive it. But it's the conservatives that I have an issue with speaking out of both sides of their mouth. That's why the Ashley Madison had those two nauseating Disney princess Gaston archetypes as the main characters. Juxtaposition Ashley Madison. And then you're seeing what the system is trying to do. It's trying to expose all the people who are hypocrites, who claim they're pious and do-gooding and this and that. And they have a dark, dark history, a dark, dark background. That if someone dug into their emails, they would see some shit. And then they can't play this game of, I'm a do-gooder. Okay? At least the liberals are upfront about it, but it's the conservatives who hide behind deception, and that's what gets me, is that's why the system is exposing you. God-fearing Disney princesses are their own paradox, and they're like sheep led to slaughter. Oh, she figured out pretty quickly, and she was devastated, but she took them back. That was the national match. She took them back. And now they have a nice, happy family, but, you know, okay. The men just play whatever part their mothers told them to play, and that's kind of the issue, but whatever. So how do people learn about the ways of the world? Well, somebody has to tell them, and maybe it's a system, and then they'll either fight against their own hormones and release the desires, or they allow the system to safely program them to do what they need to do without victimizing somebody else. And so we have the right wing that are against the system teaching kids the ways of the world, but they want their girls to learn on the street and potentially even be victimized and brutalized by some stranger. Can you imagine what these poor girls who don't know what the hell's going on learn on the street? Oh my God. And that's what these right-wing conservatives want to do, is they want their girls to learn whatever the man, and you don't know, some of these men are brutal. Some of these men are fucking brutal. And they brutalize their wives or girlfriends. It's bad. Which is why they teach sexuality in school, because you know the kids are going to learn the hard way. If they even survive their own peers. Or they'll be so predatory against a person, place, or thing, and that's the issue right now. So no matter what, if people have major desires and they can't control them, then they will become very predatory. And that's why we have rapists out there, because the parents never controlled themselves or their own children, or didn't teach their girls the ways of the world. So we have rapists out there that find girls that don't know any better. Because they came from a conservative household of mothers who were like, oh, ugh. My world, if you can release the demons, you'll lessen that desire so you're not hunting humans. But even then, I couldn't tell you if you can handle that kind of release process. There is a method behind the madness, but I don't expect people who are closed-minded and who are probably rapists out there to understand what's going on. So again, how many males out there who are against what's going on, who are right-wing, how many of them, and who are against their exes, how many of them have traveled around in packs and victimized females out there? And now they hate their exes. How many men? Oh, a lot. And they think they have the right to be indignant about whatever is going on out there. When the system is trying to destroy those types of people because they are predatory. And if you're feeling the system is destroying you, maybe you are predatory. Maybe you're the ones that they're trying to get rid of because you are dangerous. And it doesn't help that mothers pimp out their own daughters on the internet. If mothers have no boundaries around themselves, they will not have boundaries around their children. Oh, I see these young mothers who are so oblivious, looking for Prince Charming, and they are pimping themselves out, yes, and their kids. So SON/SUN worship, which is why men need to slow the F down if they want to prolong their life, if it's even possible for them. And I already see the younger, skinny boys in our society are not going to make it very far. They'll have a good childhood, but I doubt they'll make it in their 20s and 30s, because it's like they don't have much to them. They're using up all their potential right now in elementary school. These kids, girls and boys, are using up so much of their potential in elementary school that by the time they get to high school or even college, it'll be questionable if they survive it. They're like an Al Bundy. Their heyday will be grade school and potentially even high school. And so right now, the younger generation of children look very sickly. The boys look very sickly. The girls look very sickly. And I know they're starving with food allergies and highly, highly activated in their community, because their parents are putting them in all the different programs. Okay, running and soccer and football and all the things that kids do that we did, but the climate's changed. Is it appropriate now? Well, if people don't change, they'll run their kids to death. Climate change. The global warming is messing people up. That's why a lot of people are dying suddenly. And wow, programmed cell death, or a heat-induced cell death, also known as a pepticis. So what temperature does a pepticis occur at? What's a pepticis? A programmed cell death. What triggers cells to die? Okay. So we're seeing things in Celsius. 43 to 50 degrees Celsius, or over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And so with this climate change, and we have Houston, where 800,000 people have no power. Can you imagine how hot it gets inside the apartments, the houses? And there's no AC. Cell death is induced differently by temperature. Necrosis occurs at temperatures of 50 degrees Celsius, or over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or higher, while a pepticis occurs in the range of 43 to 50, which is over 100. However, even if cancer cells are heated to induce selective apoptosis, it is impossible to evenly heat whole tumors to thermal diffusion. And so then when you have radiation and all that stuff and laser surgery, it's impossible to evenly heat whole tumors. And so you could actually be causing them to replicate. And you can have cancer cells that are active in heat, which is why the heat could be favorable for cancer, but not for the person. So why do you think with all this climate change and UV and everything, you're seeing a resurgence in cancer and people falling apart? And so immunoglobulin Y, IgY, is active. Okay, so that is the antibodies. That's men. Let's just convert the Y into men. Is active between 3.5 pH and 11, but its affinity for antigen decreases, so it doesn't bind. As the temperature increases, IgY is a protein molecule that is resistant to heat and pH, and it is stable between 30 and 70 degrees Celsius, so still over 100. But its affinity for antigens, so the antigens come in and attack, and then this is where the men are getting cancer or deteriorating. But its affinity for antigens decreases. So what do you mean by that? Where it's not binding to the antigen to protect the body from outside invaders. So what is happening is that the IgY is a protein molecule that is resistant to heat, and it's stable between 30 degrees Celsius and 70 degrees Celsius, but over 100. And so that's why these men are not surviving, because the decrease in the affinity for antigen is decreasing. And then the temperatures are keeping then those invaders stable. And that's why cancer is proliferating in these men. However, the addition of sucrose, maltose, and glycine can protect IgY from heat denaturation, while sorbitol can stabilize it to an acidic pH. IgY is also resistant to inactivation by the proteolytic enzyme trypsin and chymotrypsin, but it's degraded by pepsin. And so I was looking at what glycine and all that stuff is. It's meat and stuff. All right. And so people who are doing sugar detoxes, they're screwing themselves. And so, yeah. So those who are taking sugar out of their diet are screwing themselves. If they're on those, what do you get, the Atkins diet? Yeah, you're screwing yourself. All right. So when I said, is America like the representation of basically prostitution all over the world? Well, absolutely. When you're selling your kids on the open market to everybody. Mainstream America is taking cues from the entertainment industry using the same model. So I think left-wing America actually gives a crap about the women more than the right-wing America. We have right-wing people who pretend they're pious, but they advocate big families and their girls are going to have to learn extremely hard lessons, probably very painful ones that will destroy them. The left-wing are up front, and they prepare the girls for what the world's going to be, and that's the issue with the right-wing, also who thrust the girls into corruption, and she learns very hard lessons, and the left-wing prepares women so they don't. So that way she doesn't die in the process. But the whole human trafficking thing, well, I guess that's one way to survive. So the thing with Kimora Lee Simmons' daughter, the Olsen twins, all like even the Kardashians, and even who else? Victoria's Secret models, and then Leonardo DiCaprio girls that he's been given, and then all the Hollywood, elders that are screwing 18 and 19-year-olds having kids with 30-year-olds. I mean, that's all human trafficking. That's all human trafficking. But this whole human trafficking thing, well, I guess that's one way to survive. Every woman starts off with brutality from somebody, and that is her curse. Maybe the left wing have a better chance to survive, and the right wing have no problem running through the women, turn them all into mothers who then do themselves in. If a woman survives her 20s and 30s and she isn't repeating the same mistakes that her mother did, she might have a chance, but who's to say? Because the 40s and 50s can be brutal. All right, I'm 50, but I went through 7 years of hell. But now I understand the mentality of the left wing, and it's truly preserving women if they can even survive her own family and society. And she's going to have to go through hell because both men and women are held to each other, especially behind closed doors. So I don't care what you post on your Facebook. It's what happens behind closed doors is what people are really wonder about. And a lot of shit goes on behind closed doors that even women don't even talk about. And so I don't sell human or animal flesh, but I buy animal flesh to eat until the whole food supply has changed and growing animals' cancer proteins is in a lab, infusing those cells into other mediums for my nutritional survival. And so, yeah, growing animal cancer proteins in a lab, because cancer is just life. It's just what it's competing for. So cancer is not bad outside of the human body. And infusing those cells into like rice. That's what South Korea is making, putting meat inside rice particles for my nutritional survival. If there are licensed hunters who need to control the deer population, I will again buy the flesh to eat, not sell into slavery. I dream of a better world for animals and humans stop suffering because of slavery. That includes all circuses, farms, and zoos, and anything that animals are used to make humans money. Now, I understand the whole rescue because this hawk was injured, and so they bring it into this wildlife sanctuary, and okay, I get it. But we have the exotic animal trade. We have zoos that these poor elephants and large game are tortured into just standing all day fucking long on the hard cement, like these poor elephants in some of these zoos, like the San Francisco Zoo. Like horse racing, these poor horses that are racing. The horses are pulling people over there in New Orleans or other places, San Francisco. Zoos and farming are brutal to animals, so are veterinary systems. I understand the government controlling animal populations and hunters, and I think having game preserves for animals in a protected area is awesome. And they have to control the population so they don't become out of control. That's the whole circle of life thing. But I think all animal exploitation needs to go, and that includes pets. That's all I got to say. We're in a huge transition. I know some of you are caught in the middle, and I guess you'll figure it out. But yeah, somebody like me must say it because it'll be very difficult for some of you to say this in your world because you're in it. You're practicing it. What are you going to fucking say? I'm against what I'm doing? No. You don't want to give up your animal because you're bonded to it. You know that there's an end going to happen and you're going to have to deal with it. You know that they're going to have to go through torture. And you've resolved yourself to that. But why should you? But you've committed yourself. But when you do keep doing it again, then oh God, that's fucking satanic. I couldn't even watch an Amish farmer or an off-grader talk about the relationship with their horse and using a horse to do so much labor. Okay, so I was watching this Appalachian YouTube video that this off-grader, he looked like he was Amish, but not really. But he, he was talking about his relationship with his horse, how he used to beat it, and then he realized he shouldn't beat his horse. I'm like, fuck. And so you see this horse is stuck in a stall. You see this horse is stuck, carting him everywhere, and this horse is being and this horse is enslaved. And the farmer is very skinny. My husband's like, oh, he looks healthy. No, he's not. He's fucking skinny. There's no fat, and all he eats is out of his garden, and that's it. He's enslaving his horse to do whatever. And this guy is a little bit cuckoo. And no, people that live off grid that only eat vegetables are not fucking healthy. He needs milk. He's not going to milk his horse. He has no cows on his property. No, the old way is going to the wayside. The old way is brutal to humans and to animals and children. So if you use the Talmud as the representation of all Jewish people today, then let me use your adolescent predatory past of using women or men for your sexual predatory pleasure and keep reminding you of it whenever you try to say something. So I see people using the Talmud. Okay, so the Talmud is some script in Judaism, the Old Testament, New Testament, whatever. It's a doctrine that the old ways have used for whatever. And so there are Orthodox Jews all over the world, and there are Reformed Jews, there are conservative Jews. Okay, so there's different levels of Judaism. And the Reformed Jews are like, I don't know about the Orthodox or the conservative, because I remember when we were younger, we're trying to figure out which temple to belong to. And there was temple that was more conservative. We went there and we were looked at because Asian girls in a temple, like what? That was not very friendly to someone like us because they were conservative. So my parents found a Reform temple that was a bit more liberal, a bit more open. Okay? But there's different degrees. There's the old world, there's Hasidic Jews, and then there's Orthodox, and then there's conservative, and then there's Reform. So there's an evolution of Judaism. But people don't know this, and so they make these assumptions that are fucking asinine. It pisses me off. And so if you use the Talmud as a representation of all Jewish people today, then let me use your adolescent predatory past of using women or men for your sexual predatory pleasure and keep reminding you of it whenever you try to say something. There are such things as Reformed Jews in our society who don't use the word goyim. Let us dig up your past and see what kind of bullshit you did to women and men in the world that you live in. I don't imagine those who are using people's past against them want anyone digging into their emails and behaviors in high school and as a young adult when you didn't know any better. When you're packed up in a car hunting women with all of your guy friends. Yeah, I can only imagine what kind of love childs came out of that. And even if you did know any better, maybe you've changed, maybe you have evolved. Is it fair to use your past against you so people can shut you up so you can practice hate? Every single culture and religion and political thought process came from some really aggressive extreme circumstances and treachery and brutality. And some of you still exemplify that in your children and in yourself. Some of you hate women and you're teaching that to your sons, and your sons are going to victimize women because you've allowed it, mother, father, and you justified it and made sure the other parent was so demonized, your offspring will transfer your hatred of their mother or father onto their next partner. You have just developed a monster in our society that we have to now fucking protect ourselves from, and from you too. You tried to make a family with a conquest that didn't work, and now you're blaming the other person, and you're on the hunt, projecting what you've done to women and men in your world. This also goes for women who claim they were victimized by their husbands and boyfriends. And so I see that out there in the conspiracy world, in the right-wing world, anti, 9/11 or 9/11 was an inside job, and I see that all over. And there's nothing I can say to them. I'm not saying anything to them in their world. That's their paradox they're going to have to figure out and reconcile with. And they have children. So many of these anti-9/11, anti-New World Order, right-wing, left-wing, whatever, they have children that they're teaching hatred to. That's why the system has to step in and do whatever. Because the system is seeing what these parents are turning their kids into killers, into serial killers and brutal, and teaching them brutality. Okay? And so flesh is the reward for leading humans down a specific road. The whole Leonardo DiCaprio stuff. The future doesn't have to be like this, but the mother must finally break the cycle once she realizes her contribution to this. Why would you sell your daughters into sexual slavery? Why some men don't post their wives on Facebook? First of all, maybe he doesn't want to sell his wife on the internet. And second of all, maybe she doesn't want to sell her husband to people. Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. And so I did apologize to my husband yesterday. I said, honey, you know what? I'm so sorry that I posted your picture. I mean, I did take down those 2 reels. There's some that I posted that I can't. Well, I can probably go right now and go delete it, but I was trying to do it on my phone. But I'll leave that up for just but I'm not going to do anything from this point forward as far as posting pictures of my husband. Because that is an invasion of privacy, for one. And second, who am I to fucking just do that? No. And so I apologize to my husband for posting pictures of him against his wishes. And because even sneaking them in is not a good thing. And so I wanted to show that I'm proud of him, but that's a sin, and he doesn't like it, and I'll respect that, and I'll respect that in the future. So I've done stupid shit, and I'm not proud of it. So yeah, pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. Okay? And so when you're prideful of your family, and you're so proud of your degree, and so proud of your accomplishments, and you're so proud of your culture, and you're so proud of your ethnicity and your religion, that's a sin. Why is that a sin? Because then you will die for and kill for it. And defend it to the point of where you'll hurt somebody else. Okay? When times have changed, cultures change. Skin changes. Religions change. And when you're so prideful of your wife or daughter, and then they're not allowed to change. Because you took a picture of them in one way, and they're not allowed to diverge from that. If they do, they're like, oh, is she sick? Or is he sick? Oh my God. Pride is a fucking sin. So cancer patients basically starve themselves to death because they can't release demons and feel pain and suffering. Okay? And so, yeah, when you're so prideful in your wife and husband, and you're taking pictures of way back when they were cute, and they don't look anything like those pictures back then, but you put pictures of them when they were like 20 years old, then what you're saying is that you liked it when your husband or wife looked hot and sexual back then, but today she's not worth posting. But then would she want you to post pictures of her today? No. So you then indirectly, you are actually insulting your wife or husband by posting pictures of when they were hot and sexual before, and you wouldn't post pictures of them today because they don't look a certain way. That's how men and women objectify their significant others. And that's fucked up too. Cancer patients basically starve themselves to death because they can't release demons and feel pain and suffering. They do sugar detoxes, and they stay away from meat, milk, and cheese and eggs that basically are in starvation. And they basically are in starvation. So whatever food they eat feeds the cancer because they don't release it. That's how people demonize food. They demonize sugar. Yes, you have immortalized germline cells in your body called cancer that needs to be released. You don't attack it. You don't starve it because you starve yourself. And that's why my world, with my book, the way I do shit, is how I release the demons. So I still feed myself, and I feed whatever cancer's in my body, but I also have a very strong immune system that this morning when I woke up, actually yesterday, my husband came home in the afternoon, and we actually had pizza. And I feel my armpits were opening up. They were kind of sore. And I was stinky. I smelled like I was releasing stuff. And so I noticed that when he came home, he was like an antenna, because they're saying 7G can be like using humans as antennas. Well, he caused a growth in me, and we didn't have any kind of relations or whatever. And then I feel my armpits release. And I released this morning. Okay? I released this morning. So, but I don't starve anything. Okay? I don't starve anything. And so I don't do any sugar detoxes. And I don't stay away from meat, milk. I just eat food and let my body go through. I have a very strong immune system. It's allowed, it releases poop down there amazingly. Sometimes you have to help it out because the way Western toilets don't allow things to leave the body indefinitely. So then you have to find ways to really make sure stuff comes out. And it does. But what happens is it's like you can develop compound interest in your body that would cause then cancer because you're not releasing at the level that you need to properly and productively. So what happens is over time, when you're not releasing the poop when you need to, especially with all this diversity, it actually builds up. But it's the opposite, like at the bank account. It's not optimal to have all that growth from the past build up in your system, turning into antibodies and cancer. So then you really have to make sure your immune system is strong enough to release. And sometimes you feel the stuff through your lymph nodes. Sometimes you really have to help things out of your body down there. And that's the thing that I do, but not everybody can do it. And I can't assume you can. But cancer patients definitely basically starve themselves to death because they can't release demons and feel pain and suffering. So they do sugar detoxes and they stay away from sugar, meat, milk, cheese, and eggs, and they're starving. And so whatever food they eat beats the cancer because they don't release it. And then the body falls apart and you can't help them because they don't understand how to deal with pain and suffering. And so you're not supposed to direct them how to manipulate their own flesh. And so they will always have somebody else manipulate their flesh, which means it's done. It's just a matter of time. And so, here we go. So as soon as you have a child, you stop maturing and advancing, and now you are deteriorating. And relative to your station in life, the deterioration might be rewarded or punished. Women and men who have children stop their ability to advance their intellect, and they are stuck in that moment and then die a slow and painful death until they learn how to redirect and lessen their desires to be satisfied. And then what happens is parents are stuck selling their children and themselves on the open market, essentially human trafficking, which is why we are in a great reset, because the misery is astronomical and the system must stop the bleeding. And if you think I'm incorrect, please prove me wrong. Be the example that you're not stuck in your old intellect, that you've advanced in your intellect, you're advancing your protective and release, and you are becoming an evolutionary person that's advancing humans as well as themselves. Be the example. I gotta pee. Hold on. All right. So COVID has changed many people for the better or worse. COVID changed me for the better, but it was a fight and it will continue to be a fight. But I'm extremely thankful for climate change. But now it's just surviving the weather. And I will tell you, my government is extremely smart. Usually, or actually, literally, the government is genius. Now it's just surviving your own peers. That's going to be the hardest fight of all because my peers are deadly and they don't even know it. And that's the kind of situation you're in. You're all up against your peers who will destroy you if you allow them to. And they will. Okay? But give your peers the opportunity to save themselves because they're not the enemy. It's just they don't realize all their good intentions develop the road to hell. All right? So you have friends and family that have great intentions. They love you, respect you, whatever. Or they don't, whatever. But they want to be around you. They want to give you the company. They want to give you things. But really, when you think about it, all of that is going to work against you. And so if you want to save your friends and family, you leave the situation and let them save themselves. It doesn't mean they're going to save themselves, but why be a party to somebody else's destruction if you don't have to? And that's another paradox, is leaving people to save them. That's the situation, because when you're around them, you're not saving them. You're just contributing to, you're enabling them to destroy themselves. Because you can't make them live. They got to be the ones to eat and release demons and do whatever. And so if you have issues with my information, and people have, don't tell on yourself, I'm not trying to exploit you. See, when people are in defense and they're disputing my information, they tell on themselves. They tell people what weaknesses they hold. You see what kind of shit you're dealing with people out there. And they're showing you all of their weaknesses. They're showing you how they're justifying their lifestyle and belief system. They're basically letting it all hang out. And I could leave some of the comments up there like I could have. No, I deleted them because I don't want to exploit that. Because once you realize how to read people and how to understand what goes on in their head, just read their defense. Read what they're defending themselves from on your page. Please don't defend your position on my page because you act as if I've attacked you and you're defending yourself with the intention to convert me or make me understand your position, which means you're saying that I'm wrong for even thinking this. All right? So people are telling on themselves, and I don't want you to do that. Because you should be allowed to evolve and change and not put into permanence something about yourself. Because people say, well, I have kids because I'm glad I had a kid because it helped me grow up. They helped me do this and they helped me do that. Yeah, so you use your child to leverage your position for social capital, for money, for position. You used your kid for your business. Your kid is not really, they don't own themselves. You own that child. And that's what that person was saying, is that basically their kid gave them everything that they have today. So that kid's a commodity. You just told on yourself that your kid's a commodity, that you're better off today because you had a kid. See, there's ways to look at things. People want to say, oh, I had a kid, it made me better. Okay. That's great. So that's great. Child slavery is just wonderful, isn't it? Is it not? No. So that's what I'm saying. You don't want to tell on yourself. Don't tell on yourself. Don't defend your position on my page, because believe me, when you finally look back at what you wrote, you'd be like, oh my God, I told everyone that I used my kid to get ahead. I told everyone I leveraged my kid to get ahead. Oh my God, you don't want to admit that to anyone. So stay on your own page. You haven't commented at all for however long and you lurk, and I'm sorry, but I don't even like nice trolls. And if you can't use your own page to process your own ideas, then you're just one of those who have to give off an image, and I don't like fake bullshit either. So please stay in your world off of marketing and sales and whatever, and my information right now is probably not for you at this juncture. There's nothing to defend because we're in a transition. Just consider the information, and there's nothing for you to do unless you want to in your own world. I just merely observe the world I live in. And you guys will make your own choices, and I can give a shit what you do. I don't care. It's none of my business what you think about your own world and why you do what you do. If you think my assertions are wrong, well, my God, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has them. Welcome to life. Why don't you use your own page for personal and professional development? Oh my God, what a novel idea that you use your own Facebook for your own development. That way you don't have to keep defending yourself. You just exemplify what you believe. I strategically defend myself into the world on my own page and speak to whatever's out there. And I don't have to force people to listen to my point of view or make them feel wrong, psychologically manipulating them with politeness and ha-ha. I'm telling you, the women are the most vindictive, and they use psychological manipulation to force their point across. That's psychological rape, and women know how to use that because they've had to. But you're not going to use it on me. I'm a woman. I know exactly what you're doing. Okay? And some women come off as funny and haha and loving, but in reality, they're sticking a knife in you. And they're smiling to your face. I just experienced that right then, which is why I stay away from females, especially if they're all about love and sex. Especially when they think they must defend their position. Because they will knife you psychologically. I got your number, don't do it again, or I'll block you. All right? Plus, I want to spare you of embarrassing yourself through your confessionals, because what you're doing is showing everyone your weaknesses, and you don't want to do that. Don't tell on yourself, I'm not trying to exploit you. Because when I did comment, well, no matter the outcome, you used your kid as leverage. You exploited your child for personal gain. And then I deleted that whole, I'm like, okay, Jillian, now See, when you know how shit works, you can, oh God, you don't want to be this destroyer of people. You want them just to think about stuff, but you don't want to call them on it in such a way where you can turn around on them. And even though I did that for that minute, but I deleted that whole thing, okay? Because you don't want, that's why I said don't defend yourself, because you will tell on yourself and you will admit what exactly I'm saying. You don't want to be that example, okay? Okay. Oh yeah, the Ohio. Yeah, I got this mail from some place, and it was directed towards an old prior owner, and so I just ripped it up. But it was from the Ohio lottery. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I didn't say lottery. I didn't say anything. I just read it. I just read it. I just looked at the actual envelope and read it like, and throw it away, right? Now I'm getting Ohio lottery emails or what is it, ads. And that's creepy. Yes. This phone can read your mind. This phone can implant ideas. And if you're susceptible to suggestion, then some of the ideas will suggest you do this, or that. This phone, any kind of technology can do whatever it wants, and they can read everything that's going on in your head. Everything. And so you know where the flirt variant's going to come from? All the group orgies, the group sex, all the people that are going out there and having pleasure in paradise. That's why I just stay home and stay safe. Because I know if I'm out there in a group situation, in a hot climate where people are drinking and doing drugs and all that stuff, I'm going to have to deal with releasing the demons. It's not worth it to me anymore. I don't need another variation of what's out there. I don't. So from this point, I'm not going to any parties from this point forward. None. I'm done. I'm done with the party lifestyle. I'm done with group. I'll go to different places like the grocery store and maybe a restaurant or two, but I'm done with the parties. No more. And there's going to be annual parties that, and I'm not going to go, I'm not risking my life, limb, and having to deal with the pain and suffering afterwards. There's no point in inflicting pain onto myself. But the whole group sex stuff, I would say this is probably where the new flirt variant will come from, if it's not already here. All right, so now you kind of see what's going on as far as the future and the now and the past, and you'll make your own decisions. But I got everyone's number now. Don't try to dispute this. Just recognize the information, use it to your benefit or not. Consider your lifestyle, your belief system. Consider your methods of everything. And good luck. You're going to need it. All right, bye.